Welcome to HiveMind. This is Edge with my co-host Speaker. How are you today, Speaker?
I'm good. How you doing?
I can't complain. Hey, I'm still here despite all the big tech censorship. So that's a good thing, I guess.
And that's something we're definitely going to roll in today too.
Yeah, today we're going to talk about something that connects to the big tech censorship that we're witnessing, but is actually going to be a much bigger, broader topic that's even more serious and that affects all of humanity. So we're going to get into a deep dive into the topic of artificial intelligence. And I want to give our listeners an idea of where we're at in 2020 with regards to the advancements made in artificial intelligence, the narrow applications that it's being used for right now. Then I want to get into this global competition and arms race going on to dominate in the area of artificial intelligence. And we really, really need to discuss what the future holds for artificial intelligence and the impacts it's going to have on humanity. We really need to have this philosophical discussion on artificial intelligence and how it's going to affect our free will. Talk about the singularity merging with AI and what it all means to be truly human. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. But Speaker, first I want to just lay the groundwork. Let's give our overall perspectives and opinions on artificial intelligence. Why don't you start?
Look, like you said, this is a deep topic, and this is something I think a lot of people have talked about or thought about. The question of it is, do you see this being beneficial to mankind in the long run? Are you a pessimist or are you an optimist on this topic? And I think I fall somewhere in the middle. How about you?
Oh, I'm definitely a pessimist.
You're definitely a pessimist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that artificial intelligence is a slippery slope, and it has the potential for extinction level applications and implications for humanity. And it's only as good or as evil as it's programmed to be. That's the problem. It's programmed to learn with the same biases as the programmers who create it. And that does not bode well for the future of AI when you take a look at how the AI is programmed currently. And we're on this fast track trajectory for AI to become self-aware and surpass human intelligence within the decade. And if there's this super intelligence AI that's not symbiotic with humanity, it could have catastrophic effects on humanity. It can be used currently for good. I mean, facial recognition software has the ability to, say, spot wanted criminals or terrorists, as well as missing children or abused children. However, that same technology can be used to target political dissidents, like in China, for example.
China's a good example. I mean, we see apps that they're rolling out like TikTok and all that, which is a full data collection website. If you have it, delete it. Don't use it, because it's just using to store all your data for the Chinese. But with the face recognition stuff and the thing that's rolling out in China, and the real scary thing about it is they pick up your face, they pick up everything about you. So it doesn't matter if you're a criminal or if you're not a criminal. And then this starts interjecting on personal rights. They can use that to bring up your social credit scores. You know, a shop can pick it up and go, okay, you're a lower class person. We've seen your profile. You're not welcome in here, and that's the way China's going.
Right. So artificial intelligence it's neutral, except for the fact that its biases are based off the biases of those who program it. So it's only as good as the users or creators that create it. And that is where it can be good or evil.
Yeah, so there's different types of artificial intelligence, and I think we've got to kind of mention this and set this out. I mean, there's machine learning, there's artificial general intelligence, there's super intelligence, and super intelligence is the point where things will start to get scary, because that goes beyond, like you were saying, it's only as benevolent as the creator or the programmer. Super intelligence supersedes all that. It can supersede its programming.
Right. Right now, we just as far as 2020 goes, where we're at is we have lots and lots of artificial intelligence performing narrow tasks, and it's gotten quite good at performing narrow tasks. The future would be more of a general artificial intelligence that can move from task to task, more like a human being, can perform multiple tasks, can excel in multiple areas, not one specific area. So that is where I think, is going in the future, and we need to talk about that. And then again, as you had just mentioned, the next level is the super intelligence level, to where it is completely out of control, of our control.
Well,
And
it doesn't need humans anymore. You can look at it as okay. So we're walking down the street now. There's billions of ants in the world, right? And we kind of just walk past them. Sometimes we step on them. We don't see them. So will this superintelligence, and it will, because of the rate of uh, its learning capabilities, its data transfer, and how fast it is at its cognitive function, will it start walking past us and seeing us like ants? And that's the scary bit. And that's where I think a lot of people go down, where you see it and I do too, as a detriment to humanity and the world itself.
let's take a step back and let's get into artificial intelligence that is being used in various applications right now, that people use every day, see every day, and may not even realize that they're encountering artificial intelligence. Since we're experiencing a tremendous amount of censorship leading up to the 2020 election, I'd like to start with how AI is being used by social media giants to censor conservatives and sway the election, like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and others. They're all deploying AI to identify what they determine to be quote unquote hate speech or content from whoever they determine to be an extreme group. It doesn't seem as though this AI is programmed to target groups like Black Lives Matter. I don't think Black Lives Matter falls into that category, even though they're self-described Marxists who have pledged to burn the system down if they don't get their way. It does, however, appear to be programmed to target and censor voices of dissent from their Orwellian Marxist, socialist, communist agenda, doesn't it?
100%. But we've been seeing this ramp up for the last couple of years, and
Definitely.
it's gotten good at it.
It has. Social media giants learned from their mistakes in 2016 and have spent the last 4 years preparing for the 2020 election. In 2016, Facebook relied heavily on human moderators to censor. And since the coronavirus, they've sent thousands of moderators home, and AI is running the show, basically. Just in the first quarter of 2020, Facebook AI removed over 9.6 million pieces of content deemed to be in violation of the company's hate speech policy. And Twitter's doing the same thing. They're using AI to identify what they deem as racist content and hate speech, or content from what they believe are extremist groups. Again, groups like Black Lives Matter, Antifa, Chinese Communist Party, the Iranian regime, they don't seem to be targeted. The AI is programmed with the same Marxist ideology as the ones who program it, and it's targeting the voices of dissent against this ideology. Just this week, we saw 7,000 at least accounts from people who support QAnon taken down, banned, and 150,000 more were limited on Twitter. Also, Jewish accounts with the Star of David as their profile pictures, they were locked out because the Star of David by Twitter AI was deemed as hateful imagery. What does this tell you about the biases that the AI that these of these big social media giants is using?
It's like you said, it's at the moment when it's at this stage of machine learning, whoever's putting the input codes in and whoever's programming it, their bias is coming through, clear as day. And this is extremely scary on the fact that it won't stop at just and this is something that I think a lot of more leftist radicals don't understand, is that eventually it's going to come from them. It just keeps narrowing the gap because that's the ideology. The ideology is regressive.
Also, AI is going to be used, that the same facial recognition tools that have been used in China to say target dissidents, that same sort of facial recognition AI is going to be targeting people who are potentially sick with the coronavirus. It's currently being used to surveil and target people who are potentially infected in South Korea, where there are fewer privacy rights. They are using contact tracing to target and facial recognitions to locate and identify everyone who's been in contact with someone who's been diagnosed. And they're using thermal cameras to identify people who have a fever, and facial recognitions to track these people. It's just terrifying to think the level of surveillance that is happening currently with artificial intelligence right now.
It is scary to think about because, like we know, most governments cannot be trusted. Um, and when they have that sort of control over the populace, it becomes very draconian. And you can see it definitely leading us into a dystopian future where people are getting pulled off the street because they are a dissenter, as you called it before, whether on social media or any other things. And that is a very scary part of AI. America's very lucky. You got a constitution. You have a way to fight that, whether it will be successful or not. I mean, countries like China don't.
Right. Exactly. That's where you're going to see it first, and then it's just going to be like a wave that goes across the world. I would think. I envision that being the case unless we really do take a stand. We need to talk about the weapons applications of artificial intelligence, but also I know that you wanted to talk about the commercialization of robotics and artificial intelligence, and one area in particular that is seeing a large amount of consumerism is in the sex robotics industry. Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
Well, this is a massive part of the push of AI. For for the reason that is most physical AI robots are not available to the public. I mean, you have small things like say you like your Roomba that cleans like the floor and stuff or stuff like that on a very primitive AI level, and then you have things like this company out of California that was established in '96, but over the last few years they've really become the leading field of AI robotics for personal use and to sell to the masses. And that's a company called Realdoll. And it's no surprise that this is uh, connected to the porn industry and connected to the sex industry because there is a market for this. That's just the truth of the matter. Now, with their new doll that they've just brought out, the guy that created it, Matt McMillan, he did it on his own. He did it from his garage, and he built this company up himself. But now he's getting, calls from across the world, whether it be Japan or China, and they want his tech of how he's created this doll. Now, this doll can be viewed as incredibly scary to some. You just got to kind of look at the homepage and see that this could take a bad turn or a good turn depending how you see the situation or how you feel morally about this subject in general. But their newest doll, Harmony, is like top of the line AI for what we are now, and that someone can own, and you can own it. You can spend 15 grand if you're into that, male and female. It's not just a female doll. Um, and you can control, I think there's like 18 personalities this doll can have. She can be shy, she can be moody, she can be flirty, she can joke, she can remember your birthday, she talks to you, she you can tell her things about your life and she'll register it cognitively. different personalities. She can do different things with her body. Um, so when you look at this sort of stuff, and if you watch videos on this sort of stuff, it's very futuristic, and you're seeing it right now within this company. And
Oh, it's so creepy to me. It's so creepy on so many levels. First of all, the ethical implications of it, just the fact that you're conditioning people to be able to control other humanoids, that really disturbs me. And then I think about, well, could this company create a childlike doll? Would they do it? Would another company like them at some point do it? Are there legalities to being able to do that?
There is legalities in place.
Okay.
So most countries have put that in place over the last couple of years, because there was companies out of China that was doing it, not on the robotic sense, but on just the doll sense. And these companies were shut down really hard. So I know Australia has really, really strict laws on it for any doll that looks under the age of 18. I'm pretty sure America has put one in place, but I didn't look at the legalities of that. But I understand where you're coming from, and I do get that it's creepy, and it's not something I would indulge in, and it's not something obviously you would indulge in. But I can see where the market comes from.
Oh yeah, there's tons of people who are antisocial and would actually do something like this. And the porn industry, or the sex industry in general, has really led a lot of innovations, I guess I should say, because there is such a market for it because of the drive that people have. So I understand why this is happening, but the implications of it is creepy, and it does disturb me to think that, for example, what is it conditioning people to do? Well, it's conditioning them to be have less human interaction. It's conditioning people to be dehumanized themselves, and to normalize this sort of interaction, real intimate interaction between AI and humans. And that's kind of like the next step to getting you towards the ultimate goal, which is fully integrated with artificial intelligence. To me,
I get that, and I don't disagree with any of those points. But I've also read into some of the people that bought this stuff, because I had to study this topic. Because one, it interests me in an AI field, and I wanted to know the sort of people that would buy it, not just your average pervert off the street, because it's not cheap. This is not something the average everyday person can fork out. Not now, anyway. I mean, it's like 15 grand, right? It's not pocket change. So I read some reviews that people that have bought these dolls, and I can kind of see where they're coming from, on the perspective that there was one guy that lost his wife to cancer, and he wanted an intimate relationship with someone, but not a real person. So I can sympathize and empathize with those sort of people. There's like disabled people that don't interact with real people, and that get these dolls for their own satisfaction. So I can get that, but I do see your bigger picture and your bigger problem with it, and I don't disagree with that either.
Let's talk about some more artificial intelligence advancements happening like now in 2020. I want to talk about this 5G infrastructure. We talked about that in depth last week. If you didn't catch that, definitely catch that podcast that we go into real depth about the 5G infrastructure. And that is currently underway right now. It's rolling out en masse, for 2020. So as 5G continues to roll out over the next year or two, it will lay the groundwork for exponential growth of AI due to the vastly increased speed, data, and distribution on the edge, or Internet of Things devices. And with that exponential growth, it's really hard to calculate when artificial intelligence will become general artificial intelligence and surpass the intelligence of humans. But we do know that 5G does have a huge role in laying that infrastructure, don't we?
Well, it does open the door for different types of AI. Um, driverless cars, one of them, and Neuralink or full dive technology will be another way.
Yeah, so
Which,
let's talk about Neuralink.
yeah, so Neuralink was a thing designed by Elon Musk. Now, this is a Neuralink thing. It goes into your brain. It's like a sleeve. It sits there, and it can control certain parts of your mind to play things. You pretty much become a cyborg of types. So that's its original applications. Even though we are cyborgs now, uh, on a real low scale because of our phones, we pick up our phones and we can search. We're technically cyborgs. The only thing that's stopping us from further advancing that is the latency.
Right.
Now,
We've been conditioned to be so attached to our phones and our devices that it's just really the next jump into, actually implanting these devices, right?
yep. So this is the next step. It will cut down on the latency, and the latency is the problem with this sort of technology because it takes us time as a human to get our fingers and to search our search bar, pick up our phone, and do what we got to do. Now, if it's all in our heads, you can just play the music by thinking it.
So with Neuralink is Elon Musk's baby. And Elon Musk, if you watch the way he rolled out Neuralink and watch some of his interviews on artificial intelligence, the reason why he created Neuralink was really because, well, he explains that it does have some health applications with monitoring your health, predicting certain health problems and things like that. But really, I think his purpose and intent behind Neuralink is to merge with AI because he does truly believe that AI will surpass human intelligence in the very near future.
And
And
I think it's important to note that Elon Musk is a pessimist about
he
AI.
is a pessimist. He's a pessimist about the future of AI. He does believe that AI could be very bad for humanity. And the only way to survive is to merge with it.
Uh,
So,
there's a lot of dissenting opinions on Elon Musk. I like him for various reasons, but I can see how people don't like him because of what he's doing. But like, and he explains this many of times why he's got into this AI field is because he thinks that there should be in time have a governing AI body. Now that idea is great in theory, but we all know what happens with governing bodies. Look at the WHO. Look at look at the European Union, right? We all know what happens with governing bodies. So I think that's a great idea in theory, but in reality, I don't think it will work. But he's been very transparent about Neuralink and about this AI technology. You definitely can't say that for a lot of people out there. So don't tell me now that China, Japan, South Korea, even Russia are not working on these same sort of technologies. We just don't know about it. Of course they
right.
are.
And here's the deal is that it's going to be, there is going to be a time in the near future where a certain group within the population does have this technology implanted in their brains and has a vast amount of artificial intelligence, connected to the cloud so they can access whatever, whenever. And so imagine a world where 75% of the population does not have this technology and 25% does. What does that mean ethically, philosophically for humanity? Will that spark another sort of class warfare of those between haves and have-nots, based off of just intellectual superiority? Another thing is, how will that affect people competing for jobs or for school scholarships? The ethics involved with this is just endless.
It is.
And you have to ask yourself, will you be able to take a stand when your job or your, whatever you're competing for a position for, is you're up against someone who has vastly superior intellect based off of the kind of technology that they have decided to merge with. So these are the kinds of major issues I see coming down the line for technologies like this, don't you?
Oh, definitely, definitely. With the connection and with Neuralink, before I move on, um, our full dive technology, and it has to be discussed because it's something that's been going around the mythos since the 80s or the 90s. Um, a lot of gamers, predominantly, have always dreamt of full dive technology. And the first sort of instance we saw of it was in Tron. Now, if anyone remembers Tron, the game, the movie, that is technically full dive technology. And Neuralink is the first step to achieving that. We know a lot of these ideas and a lot of these concepts come from pop culture. I mean, you can even look back at Star Trek and see that they used iPads and stuff in that show before Steve Jobs ever created it. So pop culture kind of paves the way for technology, and full dive is one of those things. Now, full dive is when you completely censor off your body. So you can lie in bed, you put on a helmet, your consciousness gets transferred into a virtual world. In this virtual world, you can feel pain, you can not eat because that's the next generation, but you can smell and you can feel and you can touch, and I think that is a step in AI. A lot of people who dreamt of full dive technology, me and my brother have had hours long discussion about the benefits of full dive technology, and of course the cons of full dive technology. And the pros I see of that is not just gaming and fun and all that, but towards the end of someone's life, and I've gone real deep into this, for someone to go into a full dive tech world where they're peaceful and they don't feel pain, that's the positives I see out of it. But that is definitely something that has to be at least in the top 5 of new AI advances.
Oh yeah, and I know that huge corporations, Fortune 500 companies right now, because again of coronavirus, it seems like this coronavirus was the impetus for a lot of this technology that's rolling out, almost as though it was planned that way. But
I don't agree with that on full dive tech, but yeah.
no, not talking about.
No.
Well, talking about virtual reality or augmented reality. What I was getting to is that these Fortune 500 companies right now, because of coronavirus, what they're doing is a lot of them are investing in virtual reality or augmented reality tech, and so that they can have meetings, board meetings, company-wide meetings.
That's a good point, yeah.
With individuals right there. And a lot of them, these companies, they actually need their office buildings, they need their equipment, they need their industry specific things that they need that they can't access, but they could do it virtually. And in order to discuss these industry related objects or things, products, whatever it is, it's easier to have these virtual reality meetings where they can share it's as though these products or items are in the room with them and they can talk about those things. So I can see that it has real life applications, and that is becoming a huge industry right now because a lot of people are working from home.
But there's also a scary part and a downside to that, to those sort of, well, more full dive tech where you can separate your consciousness from your body. So there was a show in Japan that really highlighted full dive tech, which made it very popular in this new generation, apart from the 90s or the early 2000s. And that was an anime called Sword Art Online. It blew up in Japan. It was a very famous anime, and it's still highly rated today. Now, in that anime, and like I said, a lot of these ideas come from pop culture. In that anime, they buy this thing called the nerve gear. It's created by one guy. You put it on your head, and then you go into this fantasy world. But the problem that arises is that the creator of this machine kind of put a bug in it, and that bug kind of disconnects them completely from their body. And if they die in the game, they die in real life. Now you can look at that. Is that a possibility? And that's the scary side of things. Will you take a chance on something like that?
Right. I think that with this full dive tech, it's another slippery slope. And, you know, one of my favorite movies lately is Ready Player One. I loved the book too. I know you didn't, but I loved the book.
I hate the book. Love it.
But I can see how if you were to get involved with full dive tech, that the virtual reality would be far superior to the actual reality of life. And people would just be spending their lives in the full dive. I think if I were in a bad actor, a rogue regime, a dictatorship, a cabal, that I would want people asleep or basically living in a virtual world.
You always find the negative, don't you? You always go straight to the negative. You can't think of the happy applications. You always go to the doomsday scenarios. I'm not in disagreement with you.
I'm looking out for humanity. Okay, it's a big job.
No, I don't totally disagree with you. Something like that would be incredibly hard to monitor, and we know there's people that already find escapism in plenty of things.
Oh yeah,
at the moment
we are already living in virtual worlds, but it's just that's the next level, and it's really, I would think it would just be another distraction to keep the people asleep so that those in power could continue to keep power and control. That's the way I see it. Although it would be fun, sure, I wouldn't mind checking out the virtual world every once in a while, but it comes at a big price. That's the problem. It comes at a huge price.
So now I've got a question for you, because you always go down that path, and I know you always go down it, the negative totalitarian path, and so you should. All of them have reasons to do so. But do you think it's inevitable? It's a bit of a black pill question.
Yes, I do. I think it's inevitable, and I'll get into that. But it's just a matter of when and how much we can resist it. And really, I don't think our jobs right now are to stop this. It's actually to wake up as many people as possible so that they have still the free will to choose or not choose. Because right now, people are just like sheep being led to the slaughter without really realizing what is at stake. And that is what I see is my purpose. It's not to try and stop what is inevitable. It is to try to wake people up and give them time to make a choice.
It's a good way of putting it.
Okay, and so maybe this is a good time to segue into some of the more serious aspects of artificial intelligence. And I want to talk about weapon systems applications, because that is really important. And there is an arms race going on between, the US, China, also Russia, but really you want to look at US and China. But we need to talk about this weapon system applications of artificial intelligence. The innovations in this arena are developing rapidly, and there's this arm race happening. The US Defense Department is seeking to triple its budget in battlefield-ready artificial intelligence in order to counter China's advancements in this area. They're particularly concerned about China's AI abilities when it comes to autonomous weapons and AI from command and control. And the Joint Artificial Intelligence Center's director said, quote, "What I don't want to see is a future where our potential adversaries have a fully AI-enabled force, and we do not." So that tells you right there, we're in the midst of an arms race. There's billions of dollars being poured into this artificial intelligence with military applications. And right now, the US and China appear to be neck and neck on this in military applications of artificial intelligence. But Secretary Esper admits that China may have actually leapfrogged the US in their military applications. Not only that, but we know that China is exporting a lot of this tech to the Middle East, like Iran. And China is predicting that by 2025, there will be no people fighting in battlegrounds. To me, it looks like there's a Cold War building, and AI plays a huge role in this. China looks like they're arming some allies that are potential adversaries to us, like people in the Middle East, particularly Iran. And I would be definitely concerned about this. What do you think about it?
Definitely should be concerned about it. I mean, we've all seen the Terminator. We know where this goes.
The problem with artificial intelligence is that there is no regulating body. And even if there were, as we've seen with certain regulating bodies, they are easily corrupted and bought out by China or other places. So, our regulations in the US are vastly different from China and obviously other rogue actors in the Middle East. Without any way of stopping rogue actors, rogue regimes from further developing AI as far as weapons applications goes, it has the potential to cause catastrophic level events for humanity. Don't you think?
It does have a chance to cause an extinction event. Definitely.
So that's what I see as the main concern right now with artificial intelligence is the inability to regulate it across the board, and the potential of rogue regimes, actors, and dictatorships to use it for tyranny and for military applications. I think we should talk about, though, and get into the philosophical side.
Spiritual side. This is all edge. The mark of the beast, transhumanism.
I do want to get to the spiritual side of things, but I also want to talk about just philosophical questions that everybody needs to be asking themselves, because this is important. If AI is only as good or as evil as it's programmed to be, and this is not just me saying this. This is, for example, Ray Kurzweil, which is the director of engineering over at Google. This is the former CEO of IBM, who has Watson, one of the cutting edge AIs. This is Elon Musk. These are people who are on the cutting edge of AI, and they will admit as well that AI is only as good as it's programmed to be. It can be used for good, it can be used for evil. If we can make that assumption, and then also look at the current AI, such as Google's AI to censor, Twitter's, Facebook's AI to censor, those biases have been programmed into the AI. Shouldn't we expect the same AI to be programmed much the same way with this Marxist, socialist, Orwellian type of behavior?
Well, if those are the people inputting the programs, yes.
Right. I mean, those are the people who are on the cutting edge of AI right now. And
but then again, if you look at the long term, I mean, ego plays a lot in these people's parts. is something that I've noticed. A lot of them believe that they are smarter than the machines and they'll be able to control the machines, hereby kind of locking it away so it doesn't have access, which I think is extremely foolish, but doesn't surprise me on a human perspective. Humans always think they're the smartest creatures ever.
Right. But once AI reaches the singularity, and when we talk about the singularity, we're talking about an event horizon to which we do not know what will happen afterwards, because it will be such exponential growth at that point that's surpassed human intelligence, and we really don't know what to expect after that point.
Well, we don't, like you said, the programmers can input their biases and their beliefs, but that doesn't necessarily mean once the AI gets to this super intelligence level that it will accept those biases. They might do the calculations and see that that bias is wrong. You get what I mean?
Yes and no. I think that it's still a program. It's going to do what it's programmed to do and stay
Unless
within
it
that
becomes,
program, unless
unless it becomes super intelligence.
But I would say that I think that it's going to be totalitarian, and that it would be seeking to benefit itself, not humans.
So well, we can use this as an example, right? Say you ask the AI to solve world hunger, right? And that's not such an easy thing to solve. So you tell the AI to do that. What might be the most efficient way for the AI to do that? Well, the most efficient way could be killing all humans on Earth.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly right. See, AI can be even programmed with good intentions, like solving these types of problems, and go through terrible means to do so. For example, we've talked about this before, the depopulation. In order to, if the goal of AI is to create a balance between humanity and nature, then that may mean depopulation. And if the goal is, or it could mean sterilization. If the goal is to achieve happiness for humanity, that may entail just jacking up the dopamine in humans, and putting them in some sort of full dive virtual reality where they're completely detached from reality and have no idea what's going on.
Sedate them, as you see in the Matrix. The Matrix is a good
Exactly.
example of that.
Right. So the question is, if AI currently has this sort of socialist agenda, then how is it going to in the future treat freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to bear arms, freedom of the press, these things that we value? I don't see that as being valuable to artificial intelligence. I can easily see that being suppressed.
Well, you can see the mentality of not the mentality, but the robot nature of AI. It would be to grow and to learn and to conquer would be more what I think AI would do.
If AI's goal is to reduce crime, then would it be to AI's benefit to target people for pre-crime? Would it be to AI's benefit to influence and suppress certain thoughts, emotions, feelings?
I think so.
Right. So here's where we're getting into some really, really big ethical questions, as far as at what point do we lose our humanity? Is it at the point where we lose our free will? And if that's the case, you see us losing our free will now with with the influence the AI has on us. Because for example, like the 2016 election, the censorship that occurred during the 2016 election, we know millions of votes were swayed because of that. And that was just the Google censorship that we know of. All right. But if we're talking about fully integrated artificial intelligence in our brains influencing our decisions, how much free will we actually have at that point?
Not much.
Not much.
Not much. We will start losing humanity and our emotions as we see them now.
Another philosophical question that just baffles me, and we may not be far off from this. As you had talked about, there's very realistic robots with artificial intelligence currently. But when we get somewhere to 2029 or in the 2030s, and artificial intelligence has become self-aware, and that artificial intelligence is in one of these very realistic looking humanoid robots, then we have to have having discussions about, do these humanoids have human rights?
Robot rights? Well, you know the liberals will protest it.
What do you think?
Right. Well, we know they'll be out in the street protesting for robot rights. Look, it's a deep question, and I don't think it's something I could answer in 10, 20 minutes.
It's really deep. It makes you question. It gets to the very basic question, the most important question, and that is, what does it truly mean to be human? And in this age of technology, and this stuff is emerging very, very quickly, we really do need to have this conversation. We're living in the years where DNA can be genetically altered. It can be altered, and you can make the choice to edit your own DNA. Very near future, we'll probably be editing the DNA of babies to make genetically altered babies. For improvements in health and certain genetic characteristics, make them stronger, healthier, live longer. Certain technological advancements with regards to merging with AI, which we've been talking about. The chip, the microchip, which again, yes, I need to get into that philosophical discussion of Mark of the Beast. But there's so many choices that are coming down the pipe in the very near future of humans merging with technology that we really do need to make a decision and draw a line somewhere and truly define, what does it mean to be human, and where do we draw that line?
And I think that's a question we'll leave to all of you to answer in the comments. I would like to read your opinions on that.
Yeah, I personally, for me, what it truly means to be human is to have a soul. And I know that each and every human being does have a soul. It's divine. It's a creation by God. And everything that is occurring right now with these developments on a grand scale, the ultimate goal is to separate us from that divinity that we have and to make us less human. And any small step in that direction is doom for the very thing that makes us human, which is our soul. And I just caution people to look out for these things, these technologies that are in the very near future, with regards to taking the vaccine if it has a chip in it, with regards to genetic editing, and with regards to merging with artificial intelligence. These are the things that we've been warned about in biblical prophecy as the beast rising and the mark of the beast. And it is the very thing that robs us of our humanity, in my opinion. What do you think?
Like I said, this is something I would have to give deep thought on, like real deep thought on, and that I couldn't just throw out here. But when it comes to the mark of the beast thing, like, I'm not religious, so I don't see things in that context. But I can see humans losing their humanity to a super intelligent AI and becoming, if you want to call it that, pretty much an entirely different species. I mean, you wouldn't really be human anymore, you'd be something else.
Right.
And would that lead us further into like a third generation civilization? Is that the only way we could do it? Or can we do it by keeping our humanity, by symbiotically working with AI and not losing ourselves to it?
Mm. It's a lot to wrap your brain around.
It is
It's
a lot.
really a lot to wrap your brain around. Everyone needs to think about this and have these philosophical questions with yourselves and your family and your loved ones, because this is not somewhere off in the distant future. This is in the very, very near future for all of us. And it's really important.
I mean, it's coming.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys, here on our discussion about artificial intelligence. We don't have all the answers, but it's definitely an interesting discussion, and maybe we'll have to pick up on this topic another time. But we'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and definitely just think about it. Think about the implications of the future and what that means for you as a human. All right. We'll see you back next time, right here on Hive Mind.
Stay ravenous.